Next thing I know, I wake up to this, which I've talked about 2 or 3 times on the show already, this soft voice of Taylor just trying to wake me up. And then there's a police officer in my face. And I notice I'm in my kitchen. And then I see another cop and an EMS and a fire. Like I said, some old guy in a t-shirt. We just want to find out who that guy is. Anybody knows. I don't know if anybody else had fun. I know I was manic. I don't know if Taylor had fun because I was insane, I think, the entire time. I was much happier when I had a therapist.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Good Hustle. Today, it is just John and I. And I promised I would say John and I and not me and John. So there we go. I actually nailed it that time. I wanted to first off just say thank you for your support. John and I have been having a lot of fun times on the podcast and fun events recently with our real estate group and everything. And it's been really cool to have so many people just texting us and DMing us and calling us, talking about the show and talking about, our real estate stuff that we have going on recently. Are you all right? Are we going to restart?
No.
Okay.
Sneezing is part of podcast.
Sneezing is part of podcasting. I just wanted to say a big thank you for that. And also, a lot of times people will thank John for telling his story and for the things that he is very vulnerable and open about. And today's me one of those days. This morning we wanted to come on and talk about some tough but important topics. So trauma, mental health, and big moments that change your life. And John recently had one of those big moments that changed his life, where his fiance Taylor found him on the kitchen floor recently. So can you start by telling us how all of that went down and what happened?
Yeah, so I'll kind of go a little bit further back. So when I first got sober, which will be 16 years next week, the first couple of years I basically lived on a pink cloud, which is like a false reality of happiness. So you're not drinking, you're not drugging, you're going to 12-step meetings, and life is perfect. In all actuality, I wasn't, doing the steps and the work within myself to take care of issues that I've struggled with my whole life, whether it be things that I grew up with or lifestyle choices that, the drugs, the alcohol, brain injuries, things like that. I wasn't really working on me. So I lived in this basic false reality. We call it pink cloud. And then after about a couple years of sobriety, I went through a divorce and became very suicidal. There was no sleep. I slept maybe an hour a night, literally for a year straight. And that's all I could sleep. And then I finally was like, you know what? It's time to ask for help again. So, get a new sponsor, start going to a church, start going to different types of meetings, start going to see a therapist, talk to my family doctor and get on some medication because of a brain injury, things like that. So started asking for help. All of a sudden, I can remember the first time I went and saw my therapist. There's these scales that you fill out, and anybody that's struggled with mental health or anxiety, anything like that, you're going to get a form from your doctor or a therapist. It basically says 1 out of 5 or 0 out of 10. Like, how much do you think about suicide? 10. How often? 0 is never, 10 is often. How often do you struggle with anxiety? 10. I mean, this whole list was 10s, and it was eye-opening for me to look at and say, wow, I'm 3 years, whatever I was, sober, but I'm no better than I was before, except for the fact that I don't drink and drug. All my habits are still there. I'm still the same person.
Yeah.
So a dry drunk is what they would call it. It's what it's still called. And I can remember after about 9 months of therapy, all those 10s were like 0s, 1s, and 2s. And like, that's just from talking to the right doctor or seeing the right therapist or the right 12-step group or working on things that I've never recovered from in my past, So that was, it was awesome. Well, then, life goes on, you get busy, so on and so forth. And we're talking years and years later. Well, I don't go to church anymore. I don't go to 12-step meetings. I don't see a therapist. I say grace at dinner, and that's enough. That's my self-help. So I'm back to that square one where I was when I was a year or 2 years sober, where I plateaued. Everything's great. Career is phenomenal. Relationship is phenomenal. Health is great. Podcast is great. I'm doing new things. But ultimately, I'm still have all the same impulsive behaviors.
Mhm.
And I'm not seeing this because it's slow.
Yeah.
It's a slow growth of impulsive spending, vulgar language, which I struggle with. It's probably one of the worst things that I do.
Mhm.
I have no filters. I mean, anybody here know that? Um, you know, there was no signs or behaviors of significant changes. It was just over time. Like I wasn't using pills, I wasn't smoking pot, I wasn't drinking alcohol, I wasn't using drugs. So it wasn't stuff like that, but there was these things I would do that would impact my daily living. And this happens today. Like every night you should see me clean the kitchen like a madman. Like if you watched me every night, you'd probably like, what the hell is that guy doing? And I do this every night,
Mm.
or I can't sit still. So I get home. I can't even get home till 8:30 because I have too many things that I have to stop and do. So I can't get home. I can't stop buying things. And I shared this, when we were kids, we used to ride BMX bikes, race BMX bikes,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep.
A couple months back, I got into buying them again.
Mhm.
So you didn't buy one, two, three antique BMX bikes. I bought 14. Like,
That is a lot of bikes.
it's ridiculous. Like, and that's the issues that I've always struggled with: hunting clothes, hunting trips, baseball cards, thermoses, shoes, socks, t shirts, polos,
Yeah.
anything you think you can collect or that you can't collect, I sure as hell can. Like,
Right.
I have no problem with
I
it.
have noticed that.
Yes, it's
You like to buy
bad.
a lot of stuff.
I didn't buy you those shoes, but they're shoes that I bought him.
Right.
I may have bought myself two pair and just gave him one. I don't know what happened. So then, everything's good. And people see you, they're like, yeah, John's crazy. Like he's very fast. He's always busy.
Right.
But on the outside, I look pretty healthy.
Mhm.
But
Well, and it hasn't been as, I guess if you're comparing destructive behaviors, it hasn't been as destructive as the things you used to go through.
no.
So in a way, it's improvement, right?
Oh, 100% improvement.
Yeah.
And I think I wrote it down. It was, there were signs, behaviors, things that were not as significant as addiction to drugs and alcohol, yet still impacting my daily life.
Right.
And there's things, and I was actually, and I'll get in kind of into like where I'm at now. So let's go to July 29th, 2024. So 5 weeks ago,
Yep.
a normal day, living my life, 6 caffeines a day plus a monster drink. So I'm constantly drinking. Now I've cut caffeine in half since.
That's good.
Constantly drinking caffeine, constantly, I would say more on the manic side. I I've never been diagnosed, let's say bipolar, but I'm definitely more of a manic type of person.
Mhm.
Constant, 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 can't
Yeah.
stop. Um, go to bed, middle of the night, go up, go to the bathroom, look at my phone. When I come back from the bathroom, it's 1:35 in the morning. Next thing I know, I wake up to this, which I've talked about 2 or 3 times on the show already, this soft voice of Taylor just trying to wake me up. And then there's a police officer in my face. And I notice I'm in my kitchen. Um, and then I see another cop and an EMS and a fire. And like I said, some old guy in a t-shirt. We just want to find out who that guy is. Like, if anybody knows. Who was that guy? But
Yeah.
I find out I had a seizure. It's now 2:40 in the morning and I'm being taken on a stretcher to a trauma unit. So life changing. So this happens, into the night. So it's July 30th now. So I'm up all night. Family comes in, dad comes in, mom comes in, brother comes in, sister comes in. Everybody's coming into this trauma unit. Taylor's with me the whole time. But I can tell you, I was sort of with it because we were
I
supposed
was
to
going
have
to ask you that. Like, how aware are you of all of this stuff going on? Like, is it just kind of like a weird foggy daze, or what
very,
does it feel
very
like?
weird and foggy days. But at the same time, I'm texting Brian Majors, hey, no podcast today.
I don't know how you did
I'm
that.
like, I'm in the hospital. So part of me is with it, part of me's not.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm starting to find out more and more. Well, it's called a grand mal seizure. So they put me on an EEG. Then I get an MRI that night. Well, then they're like, well, we're checking you into the hospital. Well, I don't want to stay in the hospital. Well, you don't get a choice,
Mm,
and, of course, Taylor's by my side. You visit, everybody, all my friends are visiting.
mm,
So I'm feeling this love. Um, Day 2, I'm in the hospital. I'm pretty happy. Still very foggy.
mm.
Day 3, a doctor finally comes in. My buddy Scott, one of my oldest friends, I've been friends with him since I was 5 or 6. And Taylor is sitting there and Doctor comes in, she says, "We did get your MRI back. We don't see anything bad in there. We do notice that you do have a lot of scar tissue from an injury. We're going to say that's where the seizure came from."
Mhm.
So I get put on a medication called Depakote. Not a fan.
Yeah.
It's an instant medication to help reduce seizures, 80% effective. Very bad side effects for me and for a lot of people. So, um, m- you want to talk about chest anxiety constantly, trouble breathing, um, anger issues. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not driving, I'm not allowed to drive medically. Like,
Yeah.
I still have a driver's license, not anymore. I still have a driver's license at this time, but Taylor's driving. I'm not nice,
Yeah.
like, not friendly. Um,
And they took the license because they think it could happen again. Is that why?
yeah, until you get it medically under control,
Mm.
and you get a doctor's approval, basically PennDOT, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, is going to take your license once they're notified by the emergency room.
Mm. Okay.
So once they get that notification, now it took a month, and I was like, I'm never. Oh, I didn't get it. I'm looking online. My buddy's like, you can come through this, and we'll see if you have a line. I'm like, no, I think we're gonna be good. Then all of a sudden, there's this one day, like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I could just felt sick all day. Like I just knew. I opened up the mail, and there's PennDOT. I'm like, yep, there it
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
So, but I get out of the hospital, and then that Monday, we actually had a vacation plan. So we go away on Monday or Sunday, and I was manic for a week. Like that vacation was, I don't, I don't know if anybody else had fun. I know I
Mhm.
was manic. I don't know if Taylor had fun
Mhm.
because I was insane, I think, the entire time. My
Yeah.
sister and her daughter came down for a little bit. There was just a lot going on. Number one, for the first time in a long time, I really knew I was not in control of my life.
Yeah.
Like, there's something up here that I can't control.
Right.
So to me, it's like, well, we better work on things that I know I can get in control of.
Mhm.
So, and I've talked to my trainer about this too. You have your brain and then you have your second brain. Your second brain is your stomach. And having control of things that you put in your stomach can really affect how your brain works.
Mhm.
So, getting back on that track has been really hard because I was kind of off of it. Last year, I lost like 40 pounds, put about six of it back on. I've held there the whole time. But like, so now we got to get back on eating habits.
Mhm.
Um, Severe depression's kicking back in. I had just gotten off one medication. So now what do I do about that? They take me off a second medication because they put me on Depakote. You can't take Wellbutrin.
Mhm.
So I have to deal with that. So am I anxious because of that or not? And I have to figure that out. And then I'm talking to my personal coach and I go see my family doctor and she's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, and then I'm talking to another doctor. And we went and saw a neurologist that saw me almost right away. And we go into this appointment and it's on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And we hand her my MRI. And she literally looked at my MRI. And when I walked in, she was like, I didn't, after seeing your MRI, I didn't know what I was going to be expecting to walk in. I didn't expect to see somebody actually walking into my office. I thought somebody'd be basically in a wheelchair with the brain damage that you have. She
That's
goes,
wild.
honestly,
Yeah.
and the fact that most likely I'm going to become epileptic in my
Mhm.
future. Most likely, there could be a brain aneurysm. Like these are all
Mhm.
things that I have to think about now because of an injury from 25 years ago
Yeah.
from a night of big mistakes that I made.
Mhm.
So people think, oh, I did something, I messed up last night, pissed so and so off, or I broke my arm, or I did this. But what they don't think about, and I spoke about this on Facebook, you might make a decision to do something one night that's not only going to affect the next day, it's going to affect
Right.
every day for the rest of your life. So, one
Yeah.
o'clock today, I'm having ear surgery, a procedure
Yeah.
because of that car accident 25 years ago.
Right.
I had a surgery for my eyelid because of last year because of my car accident 25 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and
Uh,
that's kind of what I was getting at too with like these. It does feel like everyone, and if you haven't had one already, you will, has these big moments in life that end up changing a lot of things. And for you, it seems like it's a couple big moments so far. Is one was that accident 25 years ago, and then now it's this, there was almost like a, of course it's not a sunshines and rainbows period of 25 years, but there's a lot in there, right?
Yeah, there's
Um,
nine more years of addiction. There's 2
yeah,
divorces. Um, there's the day I got sober. My last drunk was September 6th
right.
of 2008. So tomorrow,
Mhm.
that's 16 years. So then I woke up on the 7th,
Yeah.
never drank again. Well, in 2 days, I'm getting married. So fiance will become wife.
Yes.
So
Shout out to Taylor.
shout out to Taylor. T-Dog. Just kidding. I don't know. And then on Wednesday, I'll have 16 years of sobriety, which will be in New Haven getting pizza and then going
Yep.
to a meeting to get a chip.
Yep.
Um, there's all these life events.
Right. But
That's
it seems like a lot of what has happened for you recently was led on by this seizure event and stuff. And so like what I'm hearing is like all of these chaotic things going on with doctors and people giving their opinion on like what could happen in the future, and like all this stuff is kind of bubbling up because of that seizure night, and everyone's starting to take a look at like, the stuff going on with your brain and everything.
yeah. So yeah,
And
and I don't mean to interrupt, but
no,
we
you
have
go.
a so I don't say like, oh, bad things happen for a reason. To me, that's not. God is good, evil is evil. And this is something we heard recently at church. Whether you're a Christian or not, I don't care. You can be a Buddhist lover, an atheist, whatever, an agnostic. I don't care what you are. I just hope everybody can believe in something bigger than themselves. But what we heard was that, and this is for everybody in everybody's life, challenging things are going to happen to everybody. Okay.
Mm,
And it's not just about the challenging thing that happens. That's 10%. 90% is not only, it's how you react. So challenging things just happen. When they do, God has an opportunity for me to grab my hand and walk me forward.
mhm.
What am I going to do with this challenging thing? Well, I'll tell you what I've done. I've talked to a therapist. So I'm spending money now on BetterHelp, which is an app.
Yeah.
So Ben's back here. I talked to some people. Brittany, his wife,
Mhm.
actually told me about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if she uses it, but she told me about it.
Yeah,
Like, hey,
they advertise a lot on YouTube and everything too.
yeah, the interwebs. I
Yep.
use those all the time. I've got the interwebs on my phone and my iPad and at the house. Um, but I'm using BetterHelp and I have a therapist now. Um, I'm going to see a family doctor. I'm seeing 3 different neurologists because I know that finding the correct help for me is going to be what's key.
Yeah.
So just hearing from one neurologist isn't good enough for me. I got WellSpan, I got UPMC, and I got Johns Hopkins coming up. So I got
Yeah.
one coming up in 2 weeks, and I got one coming up in October.
By the way, guys, if you're enjoying this episode of the Good Hustle podcast, please go ahead, leave a like, subscribe on the YouTube, and also we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts now. So if you want to listen without the video part, you can do that.
Yep. And if you're looking for any real estate needs, whether you're buying, selling, or investing, please contact Zach or myself. Our numbers are below. Back to the podcast. Today's my last day with Depakote. Took my last Depakote this morning.
Okay.
So that's been 6 weeks of a medication I don't like, and we've slowly switched into Keppra.
Okay.
So Keppra has a lot better lifestyle with it. So Depakote works well. It can work really well for certain people, but the side effects are not good for most.
Mm.
Not that it matters, but you become overweight, balding, chronic fatigue, but you can't sleep,
Oh, that's so
tons
weird.
of
Okay.
chest anxiety. Like this is all stuff that I was dealing with.
Yeah.
Um, now I'm on Keppra and I'm starting to feel like John again,
Good.
but that's not just the medication, that's therapy. Me taking care of myself, becoming a community member of a new church for me is important.
Yeah.
And that might be a community member of a 12-step group for somebody else, but I'm getting back into 12-step meetings.
Yeah.
I want to find a sponsor. I want to start working on steps again.
What I always love about you too is you're so ambitious. You have all these ideas and you kind of never stop, right? Which is just right up my alley too. Um, but one thing I want to touch on a little bit is like so you went from you were talking about how you had some like depressed feelings and like you had a lot of challenges right after the seizure, and like you I know you were feeling down about a lot of that stuff because it's out of your control, right? A lot of it is scary and weird, and first time that happened and everything. How did you go from that state just very not that long ago to, you know, deciding to be ambitious about this and get help and hit back at church and stuff like that? Like how did you make that switch into, you know, more positive way of looking at it?
For me, there's only one answer, and that's just the big man upstairs helps me. Um, but I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live like that. I care about people around me. And I was actually talking to somebody yesterday. Um, I'm going to be a husband again.
Yeah.
I want to do a good job this time. I'm like
Yeah.
0 for 2 sucky,
Well, Taylor's really cool too, so she
She's
should make it pretty easy.
Yeah, she should. And I don't know what she's thinking.
Yeah. Personally, I wouldn't marry you, but,
Yeah.
Taylor's great for taking one for the team, so.
I don't know why Nate's over there smiling so big. I'm just kidding. Um,
We always
I
blame Nate for everything.
I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better brother. I don't want to look at my phone all the time. I have a major addiction to phone. Like
Yeah. Well, for
literally,
someone who has an addictive personality, it's probably very easy.
it's awful.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll tell you, like, we're getting married Saturday, and one of my favorite parts is the playlist is going to be on my phone. I can't look at my phone, and like, it's actually has me excited.
That's probably for the best, yeah.
It is, and like to me, that's important. And the other thing that's led this to me is just the slow process of healing from this traumatic thing that happened, where I finally realized like I don't have control of most of it. So what I can get control of, I think, has been a major part for me, is getting back on track of like, hey, I can control this part, so I need to take care of it.
Mm.
But I will say, you know, understanding like, hey, I need a therapist. I was much happier when I had a therapist because all I could start thinking about was those tens that went to zeros and ones.
Mm.
Why don't I want to go back there? And actually, something else that was really big. The neurology appointment I had a few weeks ago was the hardest doctor's appointment I ever had in my life. It was kind of like, hey, you're most likely going to have a tough older life
Mm.
because of this brain injury.
Right.
Okay. Real tough to hear.
Yeah. Can you kind of take us through what you were feeling when you're hearing this kind of stuff?
I mean, Taylor and I sat there, we probably both cried 3 different times in this appointment.
Mm.
What we were hearing is make good of what you got now because it isn't going to last forever.
Yeah, that's scary.
Um, and then I'm thinking back while she's saying this to this 19-year-old kid that thinks he's Superman,
Mm.
that thinks that's not going to happen to me. I'm going to be fine.
Right.
Like, what's drinking and driving going to do?
Yeah.
And that's the person that I thought I was. And then I think, then she says, well, to be honest with you, after looking at your MRI, I'm surprised at the person you are. If this would have happened in your 30s, you'd probably be a shell of yourself.
Mm.
So at the same time, we have this really hard appointment, but it ends on a high note to me because it's like, wow, you're actually really blessed.
Yeah.
And if you don't realize that, that's a problem.
Mm.
So then it starts leading me into a path where I'm like, okay, it's time to get a therapist. It's time to go back to the family doctor. It's time to meet with some other neurologists. Let's get back into a church setting because it makes me a better person. Not saying that's going to be for everybody because it's not, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I lived through a hell for a very long time. What's the point of coming out of that and becoming successful? The point better not be a house, a car, because I've done that.
And stuff. Yeah. Right.
Stuff, bikes, cards, whatever. I've done all that. I suck at that stuff. There's no benefit to that. There's no benefit to staring at Facebook for 3 hours. It's not stuff that I do. But if I can't come out of that trauma that I grew up through, whether it was the drug abuse, lifestyle, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
become successful, and I can't share that and try to help others, then it's all for nil to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's that sharing your experience, life, and hope with others to help prevent them from doing the same things that you did.
Yeah.
And
right.
to me, that's the point.
Yeah.
So like we met with Brian Majors last week. Brian Majors had a pretty normal childhood,
Mm-hmm.
took advantage of it,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yep.
Super successful.
And Brian also went through what he called was his best and worst day.
When his father
Um,
died.
And I want to read this now just because we keep mentioning the word trauma a lot. And I actually looked it up last night just to like get an idea of like, what we really mean when we say trauma, because I think everyone says it, with a similar meaning. But trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, crime, or natural disaster. Um, and I think that when we're talking about Brian's story with his dad passing away, that was a traumatic experience for him. You with the seizure and with the accident and all that stuff were traumatic experiences. And, thankfully, um, I haven't gone through a super traumatic experience like either of you have. And so thinking about this in your shoes is definitely emotional for me because I can't imagine what I would say if I got news like that. And I've had my fair share of things, but I wouldn't compare them to
Well, and
seizures and things like that.
what did Alex Irby say? Comparison to others is a thief of
Oh
joy.
yes,
So
exactly. Yeah.
you need, first off, I want to tell you, don't compare because that's something you just said.
Yeah.
And number two, my worst trauma is no different than your worst trauma. Our
Yeah. I think
traumas,
was it Brian who said that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, actually, it was before Brian. Somebody else said that. I don't remember. It
Okay.
was somebody on the show a long time ago.
Yeah.
We
I
went off.
meant Brian Dean.
Yes,
I think it
yes,
might
it
have been
was
Brian
Brian Dean.
Dean.
Yes,
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, it was Brian Dean.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing. Like my traumas. Oh yeah, and like even my nephew, he was killed 6 years ago. And that'll be in November. His birthday was the other day.
Yeah.
And the only thing I wished, that was on the 3rd, so 2 days ago. I was just like, I really wish Elijah would have met Taylor.
Yeah.
Because Elijah was like my best friend. He was 17.
Mm.
I was 38, but we were two children together.
Right.
He was my first hunting partner. Actually, we just would just go out and hang out for a minute, then always go out to eat. Like
Yeah.
that was our thing.
Sure.
His mom, Jill, would always make fun of us. But like that's a trauma.
Yeah.
And that's something I've always dealt with. But I have traumas from my childhood, things that and not that things that my parents did, but there's traumas that went around that I'm literally just now touching the surface on with a new therapist.
Yeah.
And that's like, wow. So all this stuff's been building up for 40 years
Right.
and I'm just now going to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be medicated. Oh, that's what I want to say. The neurologist,
Mhm.
she said, we can medicate you. But she goes, would you rather this is why I got a therapist. This is what sparked that. She said, wouldn't you rather therapy than side effects?
Mm.
This is from a neurologist.
Yeah.
Like, how powerful of a statement is that from a doctor?
Right.
And that's the kind of doctor you want to see. Because in this country, it's all about Band-Aids. You
It
know,
is. Yeah.
hey, we're going to fix you up till we need to fix you again.
Yeah.
Because we want that. That's what they want.
The sick care system instead of healthcare system, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, like, I don't want people to think bad things happen for a reason. Bad things happen because they happen. But you need to take whatever it is from that and do good with it. Like,
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't,
what's interesting too is like you were talking about how you're just now scratching the surface of what some of these traumas meant to you. And I think a lot of the time what happens is like we feel a traumatic emotional response, but our brain doesn't really catch up to it in the moment. And so we have to like think through, okay, why do I feel this way about what just happened or the event I went through? And that's the therapy, the working through the problems, emotionally side that I think if we don't do it, it bubbles up and we freak out and we do crazy things, right? Because we're human, right? But
yeah, like buy 14 bikes.
like buy 14 bikes, exactly.
Idiot. You should have seen one. I got into mopeds like 10 years ago. I bought 5 mopeds and 3 scooters. They were sitting on my back porch. You know how many you can ride at once?
How many? One.
One.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could probably tie them together somehow. And,
Something.
maybe.
Stupid. Like, I just don't like, and do you ever hear me say, oh, I got one eye. I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah.
hear you. Like,
Yes.
now I have a hole in my brain. And I know it because I have a picture of it.
Yeah.
So
Was
now
that the first time anyone ever checked too?
I never knew it was that big.
Oh,
Like, I didn't
you
realize.
knew there was something, but you
I,
didn't.
I, just, I just got brain damage and I knew they had removed something or
Okay.
something. But
Yeah.
it's like a golf ball
Yeah.
out of the frontal lobe, which is like decision making, addiction. It is a filter.
Mm.
It is impulsiveness. Like, so not only don't I have a brain power to take care of it, now I have to figure out other ways to do it through therapy. So
Yeah.
Headway's another one. Headway's an app that you pay for. Love it. I listen to a book every morning.
Mm.
So I pick a topic. Like, so this morning was diet. So gut health. Gut health is so important to mental health that people don't realize this. Not a doctor, not a nutritionist, but what I do know is gut health is almost as important as brain health. Because if you don't have gut health, you're not going to have brain health, and it's extremely important. So for me to understand, like, limit the sugars, limit the processed foods. If I can stick to green vegetables, whole foods, things that aren't processed, my gut health's going to be better. my mental health's going to be better. And I proved that last year when I went on
Yeah.
this
Well, it's crazy how
gut
it affects
cleaning.
your mood and your thoughts and everything too.
Sleep,
Yeah.
mood, thoughts, impulsiveness, anything you can think of. Like even like we had Juwan as
Yes.
my physical trainer. He is so adamant about how your second brain is your gut. And
Mm.
I could not agree with him more. Like that is so important. You know, I had somebody today. So you had Popeyes, you said, Ben?
Oh, yeah, don't eat a Popeyes.
How did that work
He
out
said,
for you?
"Don't eat at Popeyes."
It did not go great.
Did not go well.
It's been a horrible 12
He
hours.
said it's been a horrible 12 hours, and you couldn't hear that.
He's like, and I guarantee it hasn't helped his mental health either.
No.
Love that chicken at Popeye, right?
Yeah.
Last time I ate at
They do have a
Popeyes was
catchy
with
song.
Brendan and Megan, who people don't know, but when they don't know who they are, but they're two of my best friends. We ate at the Popeyes on the Turnpike on our way for a hunting trip, and that was disgusting,
Mm.
delicious, and disgusting.
They're always on the turnpike too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, them
yeah.
and that Roy
Roy
Rogers.
Rogers,
Yes.
banging, banging. But that's the thing. Like I'm trying, got to get back to like this morning. I had one yogurt, I had an apple, blueberries, blackberries. Great,
Yeah, that's
great
good.
breakfast. Great for mental health.
Yeah. So this one's a little tough, okay? But we talked a little bit about how you're a relatively successful person, like as far as like money goes and career goes and all that kind of stuff, right? And you have a lot of people who love you and a lot of people that follow along with your journey and all that kind of stuff, right? But moments like the seizure can remind all of us that we're all pretty similar at the end of the day. You know, we're all human. We all have that looming cloud of like someday this will all be over, right? And there's all of those kind of thoughts that come with that, with God and what life's meant to be and all of those kind of things, right? Um, so did and you touched on this a little bit, but did going through what you went through recently kind of remind you of mortality and of
Oh,
our place in this world?
100%. I can tell you, I had that one of those moments a few weeks ago. I'd taken the trash cans out. So I'm probably say 2 weeks ago, took the trash cans out. So probably 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And I finally had, oh, it was the day I had that doctor's appointment with the neurologist.
Mm.
It was that day. I take the trash cans out and I'm walking back to the house, and we have a really cool setting. We have 20 acres. We have this ranch house. You know, I got the moon in the background. The lights are on. I love exterior illumination. Thanks, Clark Griswold. Love it. So I love lighting on the house.
Yeah.
But I just looked up and I was just like, wow, you can take me tomorrow because I know I'm doing okay. But I know I'm mortal. And that was a big reminder like,
Yeah.
hey, it could happen. And it doesn't matter anything about where you're growing up or how you grew up, what religion, what non-religion. Doesn't matter what anything about you is. Nothing. Okay. We can all suffer from addiction. We can all suffer from mental health illnesses. We can all suffer from cancer, which I've dealt with a little bit of cancer stuff, just some skin things recently. Like I'm getting old. You got to
Yeah.
realize like this gray hair is getting cut off tomorrow for the wedding, but it's always there.
Mm.
I hide it real good though with the short haircut. But
I'm trying to hide mine too.
yeah, I know. I know. I'm just kidding. I don't know that. But that's the thing. Like the impact of knowing my actual brain damage now has really sparked an interest in me to want to just change because I know I want to be good. I want to be good for the next person. I want to be good to the next person. I want to be good to Taylor. I don't want to be on my phone as much when I'm around my niece, when I'm around my nephews,
Mhm.
my nephew and my nieces. I don't want to be on my phone as much when I'm hanging out with my sister. Like they don't know it, my dad, like sitting at dinner. Like I don't want that.
Yeah.
So it's stuff I have to work on every day because I suck at it. And I don't mind saying that. I don't mind being open about my issues.
Yeah.
If somebody can listen to this episode and say, hey, I don't want to live like that either. Maybe I should work on this. One person hears this and says that, we're doing our job, Zach.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what it is too. It's the impact, it's the legacy, it's what did John mean to this world? What did Zach mean to this world, right? And I think that's at the very end of everything, like that's really what is going to last. That's what's going to stick, and that the impact we make on others is what's going to be left behind someday.
Yeah, and
It's
here,
not the bikes, it's not the
no,
stuff, it's not whatever funny
if
joke you made on your phone or like whatever.
if I died today, my family would be so pissed at all the stuff they have to sell. They would be like, "Are you kidding me? He has
Well,
all
we have
this."
15 bikes
Yeah,
to sell
and I'm
to
just,
start.
I don't normally swear, but they're gonna be like, "He has all this shit. What the heck are we supposed to do with it?" Because I got too much crap.
Yes.
And even Taylor said last night, she's looking around the house. She's like, "I can't stand this." Like, I'm like, and I'm looking around thinking the same thing. Like, just put it in a box, put it out front. Like, I don't care. 'Cause it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you some humbling experiences recently. 2 days ago, I had to turn in my driver's license to PennDOT, like I said. So I don't have a license right now until I get doctor's approval.
Mhm.
Yesterday, I had to sit out front of the office with my little cooler, my bag, waiting for an Uber ride home. I didn't tell you this yet, but you're taking me home after this.
Okay, I'll drive you. We'll
I
get
had,
Starbucks.
yes. Well, oh, we should go to the bagel boutique.
Yes, we should.
Yay, we're gonna make
Yay,
something cool out of it.
bagels.
Um, but we have today. I have an ear surgery. I got to take an Uber.
It's ear surgery.
I don't have any way
It's
else to go there.
such a weird situation.
It is, and like, do
Yeah.
I like to drive?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
drive
like
all
to
the
be
time.
all the time. I'm
Yeah.
always on the road.
Yep, and talking on the
36
phone.
Yeah, 36,000 miles a year typically.
Yeah.
I'm not going to drive for months.
Yeah.
Like, you want to talk about humbling?
Well, you can't write off your miles as much either.
Well, we'll figure that out.
We'll figure it out.
Tom, thank you. I'm not gonna share his last name. He might do my taxes. But that's something I'm dealing with right now. That's also it's been easier than I expected. Like, I had a showing this morning.
Yeah.
Taylor and I went and showed a house, came back. She dropped me off here.
Taylor seems like a great chauffeur.
Yeah, I'm a terrible passenger seat driver. Cop, 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 cop. There's a cop this morning. She's flying. She's like, when you point like this, it looks like you're pointing over there. I'm like, I don't know. I can't tell what's going on.
That's
So,
funny.
like I said, there's a lot of things so my brain injury, admittedly, and I shared this publicly, is I was drunk driving at 19 years old.
Mhm.
Lost my license for a year and a half. I just lost my license again for that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm literally losing my license from drunk driving 25 years later.
Yeah. That's
Medically, but it's still from the same night. You want to talk about reliving life experience? I got to go back to Johns Hopkins next month. I haven't been there in 20 years since surgery. Probably my last surgery there was 2004.
wow. Yeah. It's crazy how this has come back around because I never expected that. Whenever
Yeah.
I found out, I was shocked. I was just I remember looking at my phone. I think Michelle was the first one to tell us in our real estate group about it, and I was like, "What? Like what? How does this even like?" And I figured it had to do something with the injury from before, but I didn't know. I didn't know what was going on, and it was a very surreal day for sure.
And I
Um,
and I know a lot of people that have seizures, and they've reached out to me, and there's been a lot of comfort
yeah.
from that.
Well, that goes into my next question too. Is like, what are you hoping to take and um, turn into good from what happened?
So this is kind of new, but I've been working on a new profession as well. Like, I sell real estate, love it. I'm never going to stop doing that, but I want to travel and tell my story professionally. So I've been working on doing that. And I had actually started that prior to the seizure. It's just propelled that into another level where, starting the outline of my actual story from start to finish. And I really want to become a professional speaker, corporate events, things like that. And I'm learning to ask the question, who do you know that I should know? Like, every guest that comes on this show, my question is going to be, who do you know that I should know? And I talked to a lady named Erin yesterday. She runs a sobriety rehab type facility in Harrisburg. And I said, any big events that I can speak in front of? She's like, let me work on it. She goes, September, everybody is National Sobriety Month.
Mm.
And it started, I think that started about 10 years ago. So it's a great month. So there's tons of events right now. So she's looking for me to hopefully get to an event where I can speak in front of a large group, because I want to continue to share my story. Like I said a few minutes ago, what's the point of going through the trauma, becoming successful, which is a relative term, if you're not going to share your experience, strength, and hope with others to help them help themselves?
Right.
To me, it's pointless if I'm not doing it. That's what I want my life to continue to do. I want to continue to sell real estate. I want to become a professional speaker, and I want my life to grow through doing that. And that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I think through the podcast and through the speaking opportunities and through just like random stuff that we share on Facebook and stuff too, I think that you're going to have a lot of opportunities over the coming years to be able to share all of that stuff with everybody. And I think that's really good. So
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can wrap it up there.
Yeah,
Thank you guys again so much for watching the podcast and keeping up with us. And if you want to talk to John about experiences that you've had, I'm sure he's definitely open to that.
yep, 100%. Just reach out to me. Thanks, Zach.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.